There we go. All right, everyone. Definitely a big meeting coming up this Saturday. We got the Greentown votes. I don't know if everybody watched, but we had the Green informational meeting that I believe was last week, and that was interesting to watch. And excuse me, then we had the select board meeting too. That was the night before that a couple of our members went to. That is also something that we can watch. So a lot to talk about, I think. I still optimistic that, the citizens of Green are going to recognize that, this is a bigger part of their community than what some of maybe the latter voices are saying. But I would love to hear anybody else's thoughts and opinions on it, that was either there or had watched the meeting. And yeah, wanted to start an open dialogue.
I'm just curious to see if any feedback from somebody who was actually there.
Yeah, I know Wayne was. I'm surprised he's not here. I can actually send him a text real quick because
We were thinking about going, and then they said they were gonna Zoom live feed it, and then somehow that didn't happen. So
yeah.
I almost wish we had gone anyway.
I have hello. Oh, I have a question, and I guess I'm asking people to speculate. At least on the Green Facebook page, there's a lot of conversation about the question over raising taxes to cover internet for a certain number of houses, and it seems to be a lot of strong opposition. Whether or not that's true or not, I don't know. But do we think there's any correlation that people, if they're that worked up about that particular issue and they are inclined to show up, that they're more inclined to vote against our issue, or no connection? And again, it may not be connected at all. Just wondering if anyone has any sense.
So I have definitely I think that was mentioned to us quite a while ago about the broadband question on Green's ballot, and I don't know the specifics of it. One definitely might worry that if somebody is very adamantly against that aspect of it, like the raising of the taxes, they might be maybe emboldened to vote no on anything that raises taxes. I like to think that maybe I haven't really seen us and that question come up in the same conversation at times. I don't know if anybody else has, either online or in person, saying that both of these things are a big tax problem. But yeah, I'm just generally curious if anybody has any extra information about that, because I am not familiar.
There's been some state money that's come in recently that's being spearheaded for broadband internet upgrades, and I don't know whether Green's involved in that or not, but there is a lot of state money available right now. So they may or may not be affected as far as their taxes.
Yeah, and I do know that I think in the Build Back, the infrastructure, maybe it was in the infrastructure bill that was passed by Biden, but I think it did include a lot of broadband access. Yeah,
could be where the money's coming from. I think
especially
it was
for rural communities
initially.
Yeah. And I can't imagine building out this broadband network infrastructure is something that the town of Green would wholly take on by itself. So I would assume that there is some type of additional money coming in, but I don't know the specifics.
That should be taken on by the provider, not the taxpayers.
There is a grant coming for broadband from either the state or the feds, but there's still a large amount that they're looking for, as well as another one that's from the bridge, Main Street Bridge. So there's two that are asked before us. We're the last one out of the three. And I was at the meeting, and there was a little bit of dissension there. A lot of people say, why should we vote to fix the dam if we don't live on the dam? We have no issues with that. And that was especially from one selectman. He was really adamant about it.
Yeah, but everybody's going to pay if they don't fix it.
Well, we know that, but will they know that? So Jeff Burrell he's the chairman of the Dam Commission. He spoke. If you guys watched it, you saw him, and he did a pretty good job. And so he said he's going to show up at the meeting Saturday and hopefully address some questions that I'm sure will be asked then from people, especially people who didn't go.
Yeah.
Are they going to be asking for the 38,000 or the 380,000? at Saturday's meeting.
They got to go with the 385, but with the hopeful intent of getting 90% covered. But we have to ask it as it is right now.
Yep.
Which is, understandable. But I mean that it does that grant for the dam repair is huge news. And I know it's not set in stone yet, but I mean it is something certainly that changes the conversation a bit. So, I mean, and the problem I think is that has not been finalized, has it, Lou? Right?
No, but the money's been allotted to it. Somebody was saying there's a freeze in the state, and probably all these monies that have been agreed to will be signed in like October or something.
Mm-hmm.
But according to Casey, he thinks it's pretty much a done deal. I mean, it should be a no-brainer.
Yeah.
$38,000. Come on.
Yeah.
A no-brainer.
The yeah,
It's only one chance to get that money.
Honestly, a lot of times that is the case, and I just wanted a lot of the common theme that I remember hearing in both of those informational meeting, or the informational one and the select board one, was like that equity issue with is it Sanborn Pond or that other pond association?
Allen Pond.
Allen Pond. And how they don't ask for money from the town, and like how Green believes that they don't have access to the pond when in fact they do. They have a public boat launch that's available for anybody to use at Martin's Point. Yes, it is not directly in the town of Green. It is, less than a mile away from it, but from its southern border. But from my understanding, Allen Pond is in the process of getting a public boat launch, but it is a private pond. So I mean, that's not the same thing. That's not the same thing. I don't think at all. If it's a private pond with restricted access, and not everybody from the public can go to it, I can certainly see why public funds should not be used for that. And that's not a statement saying that Allen Pond shouldn't eventually get the same treatment as Sabattus Pond from the town of Green if they do have a public boat launch. But I think comparing the two is like comparing apples and oranges, because one is for public use for anybody around the pond and for anybody in the States or in the country that wants to visit it. And one is private. So I think that's a big difference there. So I just wanted to make that point.
Another thing that we've noticed
They
just by
also
cruising
mentioned,
the shoreline in the Green area, there's some expensive houses in there.
Yeah.
And they're getting some good tax money from somebody.
True. Kim? Yeah.
yeah, one of the things they mentioned was that there is a public access or a public feed, I don't know what it was, in Green. And somebody said, oh, I thought so-and-so owned that, and they kept us off of it. But this gentleman at that meeting, somebody said, no, you're wrong. And he goes, oh, okay. So does anybody know what he was talking about? There is access in Green?
So I don't think there's anything official. Like, I don't think there's anything official. I know that there's, yeah, I think from what I remember from the conversation, they were talking about something maybe on like near Hot Dog Road, and I wish Wayne was here, but
Nason's Beach.
Nason's Beach, yeah.
Nason's
Okay.
Beach. It's actually privately owned, but a lot of people gain access, especially in the wintertime when they go on the ice and they use it. But technically, it's not a right of way to the public, but people have been using it. So
yeah.
Sure. No, I was at the meeting, and I thought the presenters did a really good job with presenting it. I think that there was one theme that didn't seem to carry over, that one gentleman was pretty much criticized for, but he was trying to say to the town, like, shame on you guys, or this is my impression, shame on you guys, you've been collecting extra taxes from all these people on the lake, and yet you have not put it back into the lake. And now they're having to come to you after knowing all of these years that this had to be done. And everybody was screaming at him, like, sit down, that's not right. But I think he was misunderstood and wasn't allowed to get the point across. Like, he was pretty much saying to the town, all this extra money, this revenue, this $150,000 that's been taken every year, and you've not done anything. You've used it for like a general fund or going back. And that was my impression, but he was never allowed to clarify. He was shushed. And so some people were just more like, not against it, but saying, hey, if you want to be in that green pond and all that algae, that's for you. And if you want to do that, charge all these guys that extra money. Just some other people, not even on the pond, were like, these guys are already paying extra and an extra view. And nobody seemed to be able to really grasp that if you don't, well, not nobody, but if you don't say okay to this, you're coming, it's you're increased for good. And I tried to bring up the fact that there's, is there a potential lawsuit with breach? And people didn't really want to go there. But that was my impression. I don't know if anybody else who was there.
There's another lady that brought up the school issue too, whereas she hasn't had kids in school for 30 years, but she still has to pay for the school system, which is the same with us. We haven't had kids in school for 20 years. We still have to pay for it.
Yeah. She wasn't complaining about it. She's like, this is what my taxes go for. We just understand it. So
I definitely, I think I definitely understand the sentiment, and like, yeah, it is true, because like, even though a lot of times that the pond residents themselves don't really have voting rights for the community in which they live, and yet they've also been paying taxes that necessarily they might not even receive benefit from, like as in from like the school system, at least from a not a wider altruistic perspective, and like from plowing in the winter if they're not like even using those roads or anything like that. And I think it just I think it really goes and says something about like the frustration, I think, from the lakeside community or the pondside community, and just that, like, they've been faithfully paying a higher tax rate for a long time, and it's like the one time that they maybe need help from the community at which they've been helping, or like having their taxes help them, and like it's met with this much resistance. And I can definitely see how that would be extremely frustrating from that perspective. So yeah.
I was glad they shut that whole thing down though, when it started turning into a pissing contest, and they shut it down immediately.
Yeah.
Right.
No, but he had a point there. I agree with you. That was Eric. He had a good point, and they shut it down because it was getting to be an argument, and it was a selectman. The selectman was arguing with him, and the selectman is on the dam commission.
Yeah.
And he was arguing for the Ellen Pond thing, so I was a little surprised about that.
Which dam commission member?
That's Randall, Mark Randall from Green. He's a Green selectman.
Yeah. Yeah. And
that very easily could have turned into a big argument.
Yeah. And I definitely think that perspective that is held by some of the selectmen, and I definitely understand their point. They are just 5 people, and not everyone is necessarily against that the dam repair, and their vote only counts as 5 people. But I think that they fail to recognize that they also have significant political and social influence within the community too. So their perspective that they voice does matter, and I definitely want to retort that they are pretending like it doesn't, because it does. So people elect those types of people to be representatives for them, in a selectman like town government setup. You're not like beholden to a specific area of a community. You're voted in by the entire community. So it sometimes that comes with having conflicting opinions from like your constituents, and I definitely think that they are siding more so on one side than the other, than just trying to present the facts of the information, which I think Wayne has significantly pointed out, that like the lack of like available information that some people are asking for has not been made readily available. So that is disappointing to see, but the voters will make the decision, and I really do hope that they do come out and force and vote for what they want. And if it doesn't go that way, if it doesn't go in the way of the dam repair, it's not going to be today, it's not going to be tomorrow, it's not going to be maybe even a year or 5 years from now or 10 years, but they will certainly feel the effects from short-sighted decisions like that. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
So if for some reason Green votes no, and the bill gets passed and we get it to $38,000, are we able to source that money ourselves to pay for that part of Green?
So I'm not entirely sure on those specifics. I would imagine that if the money does get unfrozen and then allotted to an extent, and Lou, please correct me if I'm wrong because I'm just speculating here, but I imagine that they might have to just go back for a vote, a special town meeting vote for the town of Green to potentially just raise that needed money of the 38. And if I'm remembering correctly, the wording in both Wales and Sabattus and currently Green is up to 380 something thousand, correct? So I mean, that's the key word, up to. So like if they spend less than that, that money then just gets distributed back to the community in which it came from. So that's why I would think that there would not need to be a revote in Sabattus or Sabattus or Wales for like that change, even if it does get rejected down. But maybe not too, because I think the wording is if in these things is if it's contingent upon the other two communities voting. So maybe it might require one. I'm not sure, but it would definitely be a process. And I think Lou, yeah, please chime in. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if anybody really knows. We're trying not to look that far ahead, hoping that it never gets there. I hope we don't have to get lawyers involved because of the interlocal agreement.
Mhm.
You know, like you said, if one doesn't go, it's got to be all for one and one for all, you know? So I think we're just hoping to see the vote go. And if it doesn't, then we'll go from there. I don't think anybody really knows at this point.
Okay. All right. So, Saturday is the big day and, we still got a few days and, we have some scheduled posts, continue to do what we've been doing. I think you all have been doing some great work out there. Ken has his boat that he's been with the signage. People have been talking to people. People have been talking to neighbors. Gary from Wales has been walking around the lake. He sent me a little map of all the steps he's done. He's like it's some really impressive and really inspiring stuff just to really try to get this word out and get this vote out. So and not to mention Wayne, who has been for the last like 2 months, I feel, since he came back up to, Green, been like talking to everybody he can get a hold of in hardware stores, convenience stores, going to meetings and stuff like that. And honestly, it is really inspiring to see all of this work going into this. So, I mean, regardless of what does happen on Saturday, I just want to say that, it's not the end. We'll certainly have to pivot and we'll find out what that pivot will be. But that's contingent upon how like the voting and how the grant potentially comes out. So it won't be the end. It certainly won't be the end of the fight for us. But I just want to say all of the work that you all have been doing, the commitment to it, everybody watching the videos, everybody talking, it matters and it's really inspiring stuff. So sincerely, thanks. Yeah.
Nick, well, on that topic of giving credit where credit's due,
Yeah.
Diane was also out working, giving out information over in Green. Diane, who's on this website with us.
Excellent. Diane, do you want to talk about her?
Maybe she's not paying attention.
Oh, that's okay.
But
Yeah.
she's a real hard worker.
Yeah.
And she was over there.
You mentioned Gary, and I have to give him kudos because he lives in Wales, but yet he went 4 days walking door to door. I went with him 1 day, but he went 4 days.
Yeah.
Door to door. I mean, to all the people on the Green waterfront and extras as well.
Mm-hmm.
1 day he spent 4 hours, and he doesn't even live in Green. So
Right.
him and 2 ladies, I forget their names, but
Diane. Diane was one of them.
Oh, she was one of them?
Yeah.
Wow. Awesome.
Another thing, during the 4th of July boat parade, somebody took a picture of my boat with the sign on it and posted it on the status site. So that picture's out there too for everybody to see.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
What does it say? Does it say something like vote for the dam?
Yeah, it's the
Yeah, I can
sign
pull
on
it
the
up.
side of my boat, dam repair needed, or dam needs repair, and get out and vote on the vote yes on the town meeting. And I told them Google the Sabattus or Google our website for info. So it's, you can't put a whole lot on the little 2x3 sign, make it big enough for people to read it. So I tried to get the point across, and it seemed like I did.
Every little bit helps. It seriously does. I'm trying to find a picture of it, Ken.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, that should be in your email, Nick. I sent it to you back when I first made it.
You did. Yep. Yep. I do have it. I think I did showcase it one time. So where's that?
Where do we do?
Here we go. I got it right here. Gonna share my screen real
Yeah,
quick.
put up the black one, the colored one I had to redo because it faded and wasn't readable.
Yeah, one.
Black and white.
Yep. Yeah. Where the heck is my share screen button here? Oh, there we go. Jeez. First time using it, I guess. All right. So yeah, this is the sign. This is the one that's you've been sporting for a couple months now, I think, right?
Yeah, it's been, well, I put the boat in mid-May.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, there's really no way to like accurately measure like, you know, how many people saw it, how many people wondered, how many people even looked stuff up, you know, but
Well, the boat's been sitting there on the dock with nobody around too. So how many people have seen it just cruising by?
absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm.
And you know, that's really what I just wanted to share. So, you know, like I said, regardless of what happens on Saturday, I think, I mean, everybody should really be proud of the amount of work that we've all put in and like the amount of, I think, of which we've come together, you know, like I think it was in early July, I got a notification that it was the year anniversary of me creating the Facebook page for it. You know, and I know those of you who have been here since the beginning, we really did start kind of talking about this stuff in June and in early May. So I mean, it's just kind of really great to see it just come from like a kind of like a ragtag group of just people meeting on Zoom, talking about science and a pond and like coming to something like this. So I just wanted,
Ragtag.
yeah, I just really want to put it into perspective for everybody. Like it's a long road and it's not going to be easy and it hasn't been easy, but you know, it's the type of stuff like this in a community that, you know, really makes a difference. So
Who's the guy that started all this?
I think it was Nick.
and I mean, I just did
I know.
some research and Donna was really the catalyst there for getting in contact with everybody. So, but yeah, so this is great. Lou, I just wanted to touch base. How's the testing been going?
Well, I just went once with Wayne last week. We're gonna go every 2 weeks.
Phenomenal.
The
Yeah.
water's not very clear.
Yeah. I can imagine. Yeah. And you guys are reporting that data. You report that data to the Lake Stewards of Maine. Is that right? Yeah.
Twice a year, so I'll accumulate until we stop, then they'll send in that half, because I missed the first half because I wasn't certified till 2 weeks ago.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm
That's
sharing
awesome.
it with Dan. Dan's got half the lake, I got the other station.
Okay. Cool.
Well, I get in front of Wales, Mars Point.
Yeah. And like I can't remember. I know. Yeah. So you're good for the Seki disc, correct? That's
That's
the one that
all.
you're. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. And did they talk about any plans of certifying you for dissolved oxygen yet, or anything like that, or?
Not yet. I would need a monitor for it. I think you said, or somebody says about a couple of grand, so.
It is,
But-
yeah. That's certainly on our want list for sure. So,
But Christine already has one, and she goes with Dan all the time on the lake, so,
okay.
you know, Seki Dish, they gave it to me.
Yeah.
So we didn't have to spend any money there. But, I mean, there's duplication if Christine's gonna do it here. But
Yeah.
it is a great tool to have.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about the usage of it. Like, you know, Wayne's been sending me lots of pictures, you know, through text and stuff, and I need to put them in my email and then put them on my computer. But you know, just of that little cove where he lives, which I think is Nansen Beach. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, not far
Yeah.
from Nations Beach, right?
And so you know, it's like it would be interesting really to see that stuff just get like, you know, we have the testing stuff. We can just jump right in there and just check it out and see what it does look like in like that type of depth of water, because it is pretty shallow there too. So
So is there any chance that Bates College would have an oxygen tester they'd be willing to let us use?
I know their research is done this year, so I mean, it's a possibility that they might be willing to donate to us. You know, I think we have a decent relationship with them, and that's certainly something I can ask. You know, it's not out of the wheelhouse to donate to a nonprofit, so
Yeah,
Good
don't
idea.
ask, you don't get.
exactly.
But Christine's already doing it on the
She
other
is,
end,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know, so.
yeah. I think it would be nice to have one.
Kind of on that topic about, Lou said the lake looks murky. Tom, and I don't know if it's the Tom that's on here now, but somebody named Tom posted in the Sabattus Watershed Partnerships some picture of, what's it, I don't know how to say it, cyanobacteria.
Yep.
And claiming that it's toxic. And there was just a bit of a conversation about whether or not cyanobacteria has been diagnosed as part of the algae on Lake Sabattus, but I'm not sure that has been verified. Does anybody here know?
That is correct. And honestly, it's because the testing specifically for that is not really done. So, I mean, I do not think that we know if it's cyanobacteria or not, or specifically toxic ones. I think I had a post, somebody had asked a couple weeks ago about if it was like harmful, like the algae blooms were like harmful to people. And you know, typically like algae blooms are like not necessarily like harmful to people. You know, they may cause rash and like other things, but not necessarily like anything life-threatening. And but like sometimes depending like take Lake Champlain, for example, in Vermont, like they have some pretty large cyanobacteria algae blooms there. And they are dangerous to pets. They are dangerous to livestock that might drink it. You know, it actually is particularly toxic for like dogs and stuff. Like they can pass away. So I think just the general rule of thumb now, until we get that type of testing in place, is like, I just would not recommend swimming in it. And the Maine DEP, when they did our presentation to us here, literally said the same thing. They said that they wouldn't recommend swimming in it for an extended period of time. Like, you know, grabbing a fish out of it, putting your hand in it for the, you know, a couple of seconds, probably totally fine. You know, I wouldn't want to necessarily let a dog of mine swim in it if it's like actively blooming on the surface. And even if it is not blooming on the surface, that does not mean that the pond is not in an active bloom. So the murkiness that we see just like, you know, throughout the summertime, but like the very like shocking like actually algae on the surface color that I've also showcased before. And I can pull up a picture of that. Let me just share my screen real quick. So this like shockingly green cover over the top of the pond, this film, like that is, you know, indicative of a bloom. I would definitely say that is an algae bloom. Whether or not that is particularly harmful or toxic, I don't know, because the testing for it is not done.
Yeah, isn't there a way that we could find out how to get that tested?
Yeah, and I've looked into it. It is about like $900 per test. So
The state doesn't provide anything like that?
I do not believe so, not that I've seen. And I wouldn't even think, I mean, that their lab is the one that we would particularly use from the instructions that I received. But it is about like and I do not have my spreadsheet on me right now. But I do have it mapped out the cost of each individual test for that. So like a long time ago, maybe in the beginning of the year, I had mapped out like the top tier testing that I would like to do if we had like, you know, unlimited funds and resources and stuff like that. And that was one of them, testing the like genetic characteristics of the actual specific algae to see what type of algae it was. Because that would be indicative of whether or not there should be an alert that goes out. Because when I lived in Burlington, Vermont, like I said, Lake Champlain is right there. Their Parks and Rec department, and of course they're much bigger than the 3 towns of combined of ours, would send out, you know, a text alert saying, hey, the beach at this area is experiencing a bloom. Don't have your dogs go in there. No swimming allowed until the bloom clears up. So, I mean, like without that type of information and that regular testing, it's very difficult to say. And I definitely do not want to like alarm people, but I think just the general rule of thumb is like when it's like this, what you see on the screen, I would definitely avoid like swimming in it for long periods of time, like more than like 10 to 15 minutes or at all. And I would not have my dogs or pets or children go in there personally. But and the DEP said the same thing. They would say recommend not swimming in it. So
I just can't believe there's not some agency that has to do with the DEP or water quality in Maine that tests our lakes for something that is so serious as this.
yeah. And I certainly do agree. I mean, it's not like this is like, you know, some random lake on the list of hundreds and thousands of lakes in Maine. It's you know, top 20 most impaired. So I mean, you'd think
And
there
isn't it
would
a pretty
be,
high population area?
you know, definitely Androscoggin County for sure. You know, it's one of the most populated counties in the state. So you would think that would be the case. And, you know, perhaps that's also something that we could talk to our state rep about, Steve Wood, who's also on the dam commission and also a member of Green, because he has been a longtime member of the House of Representatives in the state of Maine. And
Right.
that would be something great to have the state allocate for. And I'm a big believer in going towards the appropriate like scale and scope authority person like Steve Wood. Because, you know, something like that shouldn't necessarily be something, you know, that a nonprofit should have to take on or the communities in which it resides. You know, the lakes and ponds in Maine are, I think, domain of the state itself in a way, I believe. And so, you know, that's something that certainly our political representatives that we vote for and elect should be advocating for in their communities. So
Another thing
definitely,
to make a note on, Nick, for Steve Wood, is maybe it's time to get somebody to reintroduce a bill at the state level to allow taxpayers to be voters in local elections.
certainly.
They tried 10 years ago.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, that is something that is also addressed at that scale in state level. So,
Correct.
and I also just wanted to yeah, and I think last week I did put up Steve Wood's information on there. And I mean, it should be receptive. I don't think the legislature is the legislature in session. I think they are, right? Maybe not. Yeah, I know
I wouldn't think so.
I think they're
I
part-time.
don't think they are right now.
I know, yeah. So,
That's
but-
not gonna happen overnight anyway, so it's something
No.
that just needs to be brought back to the table.
that is certainly like a long-term goal type thing of like
Right.
advocating for. And as a nonprofit, it's difficult because I'm pretty sure when we signed the paperwork to be a nonprofit, we necessarily, and please, Anthony or Georgia, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we can advocate for or endorse any specific candidate per se, because that's like some type of political involvement. But I think we can endorse bills and like legislation that is like within our interest.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Yeah.
Nick, I think when I wrote the bylaws, we allowed for political activity. I've got to go back and look at them to see what kind.
Okay. Yeah. And it's, you know,
do you want?
if a political candidate
What
is
to read?
drastically different than, you know, say, or drastically against our own interest, I'm sure there might be an argument there too. You know, if somebody was saying like, release the dam, we don't need the lake, you know, that would be something I would certainly not
Yeah.
hesitate to be like, that's not something we want. But yeah, so.
We don't need to actually endorse him to bring something to his attention to ask him to bring it up at the legislative level.
No, and I actually just wanted to, I brought the endorsement thing up because I was reached out to by the other candidate that's also running for, I think, Steve Wood's position, I think for
Yeah,
the
okay.
Democratic Party. So, and they I haven't responded back yet, but I'm gonna talk to our e-board about that specifically our next meeting. So but I just wanted to bring it up to the group in general. So yeah. Okay. Anything else that anybody would like to discuss? Somebody did chat. Yeah.
Nick, if we're talking about trying to get that bill reintroduced, we might want to have some conversations with the Maine Municipal Association
Mhm.
that represents the local governments,
Yes.
see what their position is.
I am familiar with their association pretty well too. So yeah, no, that's a great idea. So those two bills.
You know, because that potentially, as taxpayers, that could potentially change the vote drastically.
It certainly could.
It's not going to happen this time, but down the road it could.
Yeah, you know, and I'm a big believer in, you know, if you're taxed, you should have a say, at least in the local election. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
That's as far as it would ever go anyway.
yeah. Awesome. Any other points anybody would like to talk about, or anything before this Saturday? Questions, comments, concerns?
Nick, if we're not, I don't know if we're meeting again before the 17th, but just a reminder about our
Yes.
meeting.
Yeah, we certainly, I'm certainly going to try to have us meet at least digitally. And I can tell you all my schedule too, because I'll be in town. So maybe we might even be able to do a little in-person one or something. But and that's not like an everything needs, or you know, everybody needs to come type thing. But I will be, oh, actually, I'll be in town on Friday the 16th, and we have our annual meeting on the 17th. So probably not an in-person one, but I definitely think it would be appropriate to potentially to have our next meeting be, let's see here. We haven't leave this. I really do want to talk about the vote. So I honestly almost really want to have it on Wednesday the 7th. But Lou, do you have your dam commission meeting that night, or is that canceled? Just
Yeah, we
because-
do. It's the first Wednesday.
Yeah, okay. Maybe we potentially have it on the 8th instead of like waiting until the 15th. Or the 14th, sorry, for it, because I think we typically do what, the second, we try to do the second Wednesday and the last
Second
Wednesday.
would be the 14th.
Yeah. And I for the e-board members, Donna, Georgia, and Anthony, and Justin, and Leslie, I talked to earlier today. But how about we meet again this Sunday? Does that work for you all? Like around like 11?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. So we can talk about, we'll be able to talk about the vote and a couple other things before that. But yes, we have our annual meeting on the 17th. That is going to be at Justin and Leslie's place, and that is going to be, let me pull up their post because all the information is right there.
Were you looking for the address?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I say the right
Georgia
one.
must know.
Yeah, I wrote it in a post a couple weeks ago, so I have
I've got it written down.
It's 44 Sunset Cove in Wales.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
I put it in my calendar. We can't be there, but I put it in my calendar anyway.
Oh, I was hoping to meet you, Kim.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We have family coming to visit us from Europe on Sunday, so I need to be here Saturday.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we will certainly miss you, and we certainly appreciate how involved you've been. So, you know.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and the nominations that we received were just the ones that are currently on the e-board. So, those nominations are now closed just because of the way our bylaws are written. But still excited for the vote and getting those positions officiated. And then our primary thing that we are going to talk about is going to be membership dues, creating membership dues, and we'll establish those. And we will also be having a guest speaker, which is going to be really good. And that guest speaker is going to be a member of the Togus Pond Association that really had that success with the alum treatment and their journey to that. So I've talked to them. They're very excited about joining us. They did ask potentially if we had a projector or a TV that they could potentially link into because they have a presentation and pictures and stuff they'd like to show. I think it would definitely be great. And if so, I can just snag a TV from one of my brothers, honestly, and we can just put it up somewhere. So, but
Weather permitting, we've got a screen.
okay.
And well, we can talk about it Sunday. We might be able to rig something up.
Yeah, and I think Georgia I think Justin and Leslie said that they do have a pretty large garage. So if it does start to rain, you know, we could potentially hold it in there too. So, but I think anything more than 3 days out weather-wise, it's like a 30% chance that it's never going to happen. So, I am hesitant to check now and say anything, but yeah.
So Justin's gonna have a grill, but is he supplying hamburgers and hot dogs, or are we supposed to bring our own, but we want to grill?
I don't think any, like our general membership will have to bring anything hamburgers and hot dog wise. This weekend at our exec meeting, I definitely want to talk about budget and stuff like that. And so, and like, we can certainly pick up some hamburgers and hot dogs. I don't think that's going to be a big thing, but it is generally going to be like a potluck. So I'm going to have a Google Sheets form. I'm going to make a post. And like people can just like reply on the posts that are coming and say, hey, I'm going to bring this, hey, I'm going to bring that. And I'll put it all in a spreadsheet so we have it organized and, you know, we don't end up with like 7 potato salads or something. So, but
Hi, Wayne.
hey, Wayne.
Hey,
how's it
I'm
going?
sorry. I'm sorry. I have been crazy here, so I apologize for not being there earlier.
Oh, no worries at all. I just wanted to make sure that you got a chance
Yeah.
to talk if because you've just been going at it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I didn't know if you wanted to talk about the informational meeting or the actual like the select board meeting that you attended. I know you were at both, right?
Good girl. Yeah. Yes, I was.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I might have got a little reputation at the meeting on the 23rd. I don't know, but I had a lot to say and I got a lot of positive. I got a lot of positive feedback, so that was good.
Yeah. Excellent.
So I was just explaining I was trying to explain to the folks. They wanted to talk about. Probably you've already talked about this, but they wanted to talk about the dam, and you know that there's a really 99% chance that Noah's going to cover it. Yada yada yada. And all I was trying to say is, what if they don't?
Mhm.
People need to know in the town of Green need to know the consequences of that and what it really means. And and then I had a good talk with Casey after, and then I had I had a good talk with Sheldon after, and we had a few things to say to each other that some was good and some was, you know, critical of them. But I don't know how it's going to go. I know I'm hearing a lot of people. Everybody's walking the streets. For sure, Lou has and I have, and anyway, let's hope it all turns out good.
Yeah.
Hope it all turns out on the 3rd.
Yeah.
Now, how about tonight? Have you talked a little bit about the little feed going on on our Facebook page?
Yeah, you talk about the algae bloom one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did cover that. Essentially, you know, we don't have the testing in place to determine whether or not it's like potentially cyanobacteria toxic. From everything that I think from everything that Bates has said in the DEP that it is not that what they've found when they has not been typically cyanobacteria, which is the more toxic to humans. But their general rule of thumb was essentially, you know, like when it's as bad as the photos that you were sending me, Wayne, it's to just generally not swim in that and like not have your pets in there or like your kids or anything like that. Like, you know, not to be an alarmist, it's just safe rule. So
and that's what happens when not all the information gets out properly. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I understand the sentiment, you know, and Clay's Mills Veterinarian Clinic. But yeah, I mean, yes, yeah, we just don't have the information to explicitly say yes or no. So that's why I just think just promoting the general rule of thumb is like, you know, if it looks as bad as like an algae bloom on the surface, I would just avoid swimming in it, you know. And
well, I just want to say I have not grown any horns.
Yeah,
I have swum in that water.
Well,
I have
I
too,
lost
yeah.
my hair going up.
We don't know if that is a correlation, but yeah, they are. You know, I've certainly swam in it too as a kid when it was green and murky like that. You know, you really don't think twice about it, and like, you know, it can, like, I've read a lot of papers about like some of the health effects, and it can definitely cause rashes and things like that. I think sometimes duck itch is occasionally attributed to these types of things, and like, you know, in also too, when we talked about this when you were off, but just because it does not look like that green, murky or slimy surface does not mean there's not an active plume present. So, you know, people swim in it when it doesn't look like that and are fine. people swim in it when it does look like that, and they are okay too. But sometimes people do get rashes from it. It depends a lot on like, your skin, what you're receptive to. And like, we are not medical professionals. We will not pretend to be. It's just kind of just like general rule of thumb, just avoid probably swimming in it when it's just as bad as it is when you can see it on the surface. So
Sure. Good advice.
Yeah.
Now, I probably missed it in the very beginning. Did you have any updates on the, is there any update on the NOAA thing? Or is it still as it stands? No, okay.
nothing yet. Lou had talked about it a little bit. It seems slightly in the bag, but I definitely appreciate your perspective, and I'm with that perspective.
Hey.
You never know. So, and we don't know how, even if
Ada.
we don't even know how if that would work. If Green did vote it down, we then did get the grant. Like, what would then have to happen? We have no idea, and that's something that lawyers might need to figure out. There might be a potential need for a revote, and maybe just Green, or maybe all three communities, because the wording of the actual warrant article was contingent upon the three communities together passing it. So I don't know, but certainly something to think about. And just again, I'll cap it all off with just like putting it all into perspective. A year ago, we had just started like the Facebook page. We were just getting going, like, and all of this work, all of these people, all of the work that everybody's doing, like, phenomenal. And like, no matter, like I said, no matter what happens Saturday, like, I really do think we should all be proud, like, coming together as a community from multiple towns, multiple places, residents, classified non-residents, if you follow that, and, everything. So, the amount of work and time that's been put in, it's simply inspiring to see. So
yes, it is. Yes, it is.
But anything else from anybody else? We're getting close to it, about 8 minutes left, but just want to leave room for anybody else who wants to talk or anything. So
That guest speaker from Togus, is that the pond that had an alum treatment?
that is correct. Yeah. So that was something that we talked about in, I think, our last e-board meeting, or the one before that, where it might be really nice to have a guest speaker. And back when that article went live, so many people were sending it to me, which was great to see. And so one Friday night, I reached out after work, and the guy picked up instantly. So it was great. And he talked to me for about 30 minutes, and he was actually just leaving their like party that they were having for their group, for the success that they did have of that, having that alum treatment go. And they literally went through a dam repair. They literally went through the installation of the fish ladder for alewives to come in like 10 years ago type stuff, like, or maybe not, that's not the exact timeline, but that's the process that they did go through. And it was kind of interesting because it was like seeing us 10 years in the future.
Yeah.
And like the amount of work that they had to put in, like the time, the energy, the money that they had to raise, which was significant. They went through the same type of grant process that we've talked about going through. And I know our focus has mainly been on this dam repair as of late. We only have so much limited capacity, but that is still the ultimate goal, to create that watershed plan through the 604B grant process, and then to implement that plan through the 319 grant process that's offered to the state. And that's exactly what they did. And, part of that process for them was an alum treatment was best for them, for their circumstance. And, we will find out what is best for ours. And, that's still the goal. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you contacted him and he agreed to come. I'm very interested to see how that all worked for them.
Yeah, me too. I think it'll be a great example, and maybe we can. I know we have all talked about connecting with the other groups out there that are like associations and things like that to try to avoid some of the pitfalls that maybe they experience too. So I think finding one that is potentially very similar to our case, and is also maybe even a very similar solution that we might find, because the Maine DEP did recommend that an alum treatment was probably going to be the best course of action.
Alum treatments, Wayne, you probably know this, but the alum treatments is what they're doing in the Everglades. I mean, on a massive scale.
Yes.
So it's be helpful for us to learn how alum works with phosphorus.
Yeah, and I do know a little bit about it, and it essentially binds with the chemicals that really feed the bacteria or feed the algae, and it kind of keeps it in the soil so it doesn't get released. But it's important to note too that an alum treatment is really just a Band-Aid. It's meant to put a pause on the actual blooming situation in order to prevent a massive loss of oxygen, or that anoxia that we've talked about, where it could potentially, cause a lot of the life within the pond to die off very, very quickly. It's meant to put a pause on that while like fixing things in the watershed itself, like preventing more, nutrient-rich soil from washing in by erosion, and like, maybe making even some policy changes to say, no more septic systems need to be hooked up to, municipal water for any new construction type thing, or maybe even making buffers so no more new construction or logging can happen within a certain area. You know what I mean? So it's meant to be a pause. It's not meant to be a permanent fix. And it's important to note too that the effectiveness and the longevity of that type of a treatment is based on the natural time it takes for water to circulate in and out of like a body of water. So, for Sabattus, that's actually fairly quickly. I don't know the specifics about Togus, but I believe for Sabattus, it's about a year or two. So that's based on a lot of different factors. And like from my understanding of it, and I believe Bates talked about this a little bit too, is that it could only be a very short-term fix for a situation such as ours. And it maybe for Togus, that recycling time is much longer. So it might be a longer fix for theirs. And that's not saying that we shouldn't pursue it. It's just saying, that's typically how it is. Because
well, the federal government is pouring billions into Florida with alum treatments. So.
They certainly are. Yeah.
Well, isn't Sabattus's problem mainly from the past when we had main egg and all these agricultures put in? All that's been stopped now. So it seems like we can't get it out quick enough or completely enough. So maybe if we had this alum, that would knock it down. And since everything's been barricaded and protected, more or less, that wouldn't be a short-term fix, as short-term as you're indicating. Does that make sense?
It does, and that's a great point. Historically, farming has reduced significantly around the watershed. Honestly, like to a point that it almost doesn't exist that much at all. There are still active fields around it that do spread, fertilizer and manure and stuff like that that contains phosphorus. But from my understanding of this specific circumstance, it's about legacy soil. So it's about how decades and decades of historic farming and overturning of that soil has, really created a nutrient-rich environment for it. So even if a field has not been farmed in 2 decades, you know what I mean, and now a solar farm might be placed on it, that soil and the soil that then washes down into the pond from, rainstorms, does carry a high amount of phosphorus. And it also has something to do, I believe, with the amount of I think the amount of soil that's, or the nutrients that's stored in the actual lake bed itself or the pond bed, which plays a factor. I think I've showed this, I don't have it on me right now, but I think I've showed that a little spider web of things that impact each other in these types of circumstances. And there's many, there's many different things. Just take it from the largest scale, of the watershed itself, and things that we absolutely cannot control, which is the impacts of climate change, and that is expected to be impact Maine and New England, and create a much wetter, much warmer climate, which also impacts algae blooms. And I'm sure you all have noticed the increased intensity and maybe potentially even frequency of rainstorms. When it does rain, it seems to rain harder. And if you pour 1 glass of water next to the pond, and a little bit of soil goes in, not a big deal, it doesn't really contribute, but you dump an intense amount of rain very quickly, and that just sweeps so much more in than just say a drizzle over a few days, what I mean? So, and it's all about how quickly that soil can also absorb that moisture. And, we saw the impacts of what that logging on Sabattus Mountain did. I mean, we had videos last year of water just pouring down that side of the mountain. It was literally going across the road. And, even this year too, with the washout near Hot Dog Road, I believe, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah, Sawyer Road. I mean, that is still, I don't even think that's still repaired, is it? No.
No, it's not.
Yeah, and I mean that was a very intense storm, and like that's the visible impacts of climate change that we're seeing. Like I have no doubt about that in my mind. So, I mean that's you don't have to take my word for it. You can even look at the data. Storm intensity and frequency is up. You know, so
Also
I've
like that
also
one-
been smelling manure on 132. I don't know, is it Sanborn that's doing it? I'm not really sure. Anthony or Georgia, have you been smelling it? It's pretty
I have
fragrant.
not. Yeah, this is Anthony. I haven't actually, but I'll sort of be more aware of it now and see. Although I think I would be overwhelmed by it, I would think.
Well, it's a little north of you. Just slightly north of you, but yeah, my car will smell all the way into Lewiston once I've gone through it.
I know Waterman's. Does Waterman still farm? I know they're trying to turn one of their fields, I think, into a solar farm, but Waterman's right like
Yeah,
past 132.
yeah,
And
that's
I
on
mean,
Route 9, yeah, but I
if
think
the-
that,
the
I think
wind's
this has gotta
fair.
be around Sanborn's farm, I know they still harvest it for hay, but
Yeah.
there's no cows there,
No,
something smelling.
yeah. And it's important to note too, like vegetation is a really, really good way to hold soil. Like, you know, so
Yeah,
if something is constantly being, you know, every year
harvested,
harvested, or like, you know, trees on the mountain, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm,
those things grip soil and grip
mhm,
with rock. So I mean, it's without those things, like a lot of like erosion protection methods are using native plants that
mhm.
are planted and then kept there to keep soil from entering in to
Right.
slow down erosion. Because of course, you know, it still does happen. But
No, it's like I mentioned in the last meeting too, the Sabattus Mountain, after they cut all that pine out of there, the hardwood is really starting to blossom.
yeah, you know, it's something. It's the main thing, or not solely a main thing, but logging is, you know, a part of Maine. And I think what we talked about before, it's not that we want to, you know, try to dictate what people do with their land. It's just that, you know, other things need to be considered, because even though that is their property and their land, it's impacting, you know, in the entire lake residents. So
Well, I'm not giving up my wood, and neither is Mike Wells.
yeah, don't do it. Keep that there. We need those legacy trees. All right, we are at 7:02, everyone. Thanks for a great discussion tonight, and I'm looking forward to seeing the results of this Saturday. If anybody has any questions or concerns before that, please don't hesitate to reach out. My phone number is on the Facebook page and our YouTube page, and you know, it's on my email signature too. So you know, don't hesitate,
Okay.
and good luck, and keep it on until the very last minute. You know, I would say, if you can. So
Campaign.
yeah, it matters. It really does. So
Yeah. All right.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks,
Yeah,
everyone.
everybody.
Thanks,
bye,
everyone.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.